So with that said, from here on, I'm going to be talking spoilers. In fact, I'm going to add something to my scene to show that I am talking spoilers. So the main thing about this movie, I think, that immediately captures me is your main character is supposed to be a kamikaze pilot, and he is shirking his duty. And then Godzilla shows up in the repair base that he goes to. And it's kind of this nod to the original movie where Godzilla was this local legend among the locals there. And this Godzilla is it's compared a lot to Jurassic Park, and that's not an accident. I've heard that Jurassic Park was one of the inspirations, but it's a very Jurassic Park kind of scene where you see a very much more dinosaur, like much more T-Rex like Godzilla. And he's much smaller than Godzilla typically is on screen. Still dwarfs a human, but it's like, imagine something larger than a T-Rex. Still big enough that can swash a human completely flat underfoot and there not be any visible human poking out, but not have that be an accident. I'll put it that way. And it's like, holy shit. I came into this Godzilla movie and I just saw him pick a guy up and like chomp on a guy. And I am almost surprised it isn't more gory, because it really could have gone that direction if they wanted to. He grabs a guy in his mouth, he grabs several guys in his mouth and just tosses them. I've seen a lot of people say that Godzilla doesn't really represent anything in this film. I'd say it's closer to say that he represents the horrors of war and the almost senselessness of it. Because my wife pointed out that throughout the entire film, he doesn't really seem to have much motivation. And it doesn't help that, like, in the legendary films, he's much more intelligent and like has this clear drive to be this. He is the alpha titan, and as long as other titans are running amok on the planet, he's like, no, fuck you, I'm your daddy. Okay, that could go several directions there, but some movies he's kind of recruited into this savior role. In the original movie, he's a pretty direct metaphor for the atomic bomb, and also in that movie, Godzilla is also a victim of the atomic bomb. And it's not as obvious, but like any number of analyses on that film have pointed this out, that he is covered in radiation burns. Godzilla himself is a victim of the bomb, lashing out on humanity for causing him this harm. There's maybe a bit of that here. Like, they show a brief blink and you'll miss it scene of the Bikini Atoll hydrogen bomb or nuclear bomb testing. Not the hydrogen bomb. That was in the 50s, right? Yeah. But they show like atomic bomb testing, and they show briefly that it affects him. They don't go into great detail. Probably would have been too costly. $15 million budget. Goes a little further in Japan, apparently. Not necessarily for great reasons. Won't go into it. But that's, I think, what Godzilla represents most in this movie. Is he is the horrors and regrets that come along with war. And throughout the entire thing, there's this very obvious theme of living on and staying alive. Why did the character who was a kamikaze pilot not want to die? Well, because everyone wants to live, first off. But he also says, when he's thinking of his dead parents, you told me come back alive. the Noriko, the by circumstance found family for the main character, says that she was told that she's not allowed to die. Full spoilers. At the end of the movie, you have the fishermen, not fishermen, but the fellow minesweepers telling this guy that he should live, that he should, don't you dare think about killing yourself. Don't you dare think about going kamikaze. And so this is throughout the movie. You'd have to be an idiot not to notice this as a theme of the movie. One thing that people are not talking about related to that is, and this is massive spoiler, but what can you do? So partway through the movie, Godzilla goes in a rampage in the Ginza district of Tokyo. And he's traveling through. There's this harrowing scene where he is picking up the train, kind of similar. He bites down on the train. It's very reminiscent of the 1954 Godzilla, where he bites down on a train and shakes it and then tosses it. And Noriko, the kind of female lead of the movie, is on that train. And it's like you're connecting to it a lot more than you would in pretty much any other movie, where like, oh my god, is she gonna make it? God, I hope she makes it. Or maybe you don't. I don't know. But that's not really the point I'm getting at here. She makes it out of that. And then Koichi, the main character, shows up to kind of shake her out of her shell shock at, you know, the 50.1 meter giant creature suddenly rampaging through town, which, you know, might be a little alarming. And then the tanks show up and Godzilla is like, okay, bet, I'm gonna fight firecrackers with nukes. It's terrible. So yeah, he fires off his atomic breath and it sends out a massive shockwave. And I wasn't expecting that. And the shockwave is coming, and Noriko and Koichi are far enough away from the blast that the building they're buried by isn't going to be level, but they're still going to get hit by the shockwave. And she shoves him out of the way behind cover just in time for the shockwave to arrive. And it's this very, I hate to say Whedon-esque moment, but it's the best I can think of, right? In Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there's this moment at the end of one season where one character just gets hit by a stray bullet from a guy who's not even aiming at her. And then it's bye-bye, like one of the main supporting characters. Or in Serenity, the movie sequel to Firefly, if you know, you know. So it kind of feels a little like that in some ways to me, but also, again, not the point. It's not sudden and out of nowhere. It's a thing that you knew could happen in this situation, and you're devastated to see it happen. Again, I'm saying all this. The point is, if you're one of these people who likes to think about a movie purely in terms of what makes sense, you suspend your disbelief up to a certain point. But then it feels like there should be a set of parameters within those boundaries that makes sense, that the thing should stay within for you. I can understand if this bugs you, because at the end of the movie, it's revealed she survived. She survived being blown away by the shockwave that was strong enough to sweep her and tons of rubble away, followed by almost a backlash implosion. Almost like the explosion created some kind of negative pressure, whatever. So at the least she would be buried under tons of rubble. And there's bits and pieces in there where you could maybe hand wave think like, oh, maybe this is why she survived, because you see the little bit of the moving mark on her skin and whatever. I'm not sure I'm still not sure I would buy that as a logical explanation, but I don't care about that. And that's the point I'm trying to get across along this whole long meandering branching river of a point. Because when Koichi decides not to commit suicide by flying his plane into Godzilla's mouth without ejecting, when he decides, oh, I have an ejector seat, I'm going to use that shit, everyone celebrates that he's alive. He's hailed as a hero. Which is great. Like, you survived and being hailed as a hero for this character, that's very much coming full circle. Like, surviving was this thing to be celebrated. When they get back to shore, his neighbor gets him the note, which is what's telling him that Noriko survived. And this didn't bother me at all in the movie. No matter how saccharine and sweet it kind of is to think of this character surviving, even though she very clearly shouldn't have. Because while I've never been in that dark of a place, I can very much appreciate the message of not only is it better to choose to live, sometimes after choosing to live, you find out a new reason that you didn't even think of when you were in that place. And that, to me, is the bigger, more poignant point behind that. So that's why not only do I really like this movie, even the part that I feel logically holds up to the least amount of scrutiny, I'm still very much on board with it, because I think that's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful thing to find out that not only was I vindicated to choose to live, but it turned out by choosing to live, I found out things were not as bad as they could have been, or were not as bad as they seemed whenever I wasn't sure about it. That's a beautiful, beautiful message to me to see put in a film. So, I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. If you want to see me do more movie analysis things, I probably won't make a habit of doing it much, but this was just something that really, really stood out to me and that I wanted to talk about. So, I don't know. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.